Imagine a world where energy is clean, abundant, and affordable. Imagine turning on your lights without having to worry about the planet suffering or costs rising every month. Picture a world where we don't need to depend on fossil fuels to power our homes, businesses, and transportation systems. But now, let's shift gears. Imagine the opposite scenario, a future where our energy resources are scarce, polluting, and increasingly expensive. Imagine cities experiencing rolling blackouts during summer heat waves, electricity prices shooting up, and the planet suffering from severe climate disasters such as wildfires, floods, and hurricanes. This isn't just a bad dream, it's a very real possibility if we don't take action now. Fortunately, there's a solution that is already here, a solution that can deliver clean, reliable, and sustainable energy on a large scale. That solution is nuclear energy. Despite the overwhelming potential nuclear energy holds, it is still misunderstood by many people and has been marginalized due to fear and outdated beliefs. Today, I am to help change that. In this speech, I will explain why nuclear energy is the future, why it is safe, and why it must become an essential part of our future energy solution in order to combat climate change, address energy scarcity, and build a better, cleaner future. By the end, I hope you'll see that nuclear power isn't just an option, it is critical to our survival. Let's start with climate change, the most urgent threat facing humanity. We are already experiencing the devastating effects of global warming. The IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, reports that global temperatures have already risen by over 1.2 degrees Celsius, and we are on track to exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius within the next few decades. These temperature changes are not abstract. They're leading to droughts, heat waves, rising sea levels, and more intense storms. Now you might be thinking, we already have renewable energy sources such as solar and wind. Why not just use those? It's a fair question, and indeed, renewable energy sources are a part of the solution, but solar and wind have limitations. Solar energy only works when the sun is shining, and wind energy only works when the wind is blowing. In places where the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing, these sources of energy are either ineffective or fail outright entirely. Moreover, solar and wind require massive land areas to generate the same amount of energy as a small nuclear plant, and these installations still require energy storage solutions, which are costly and limited in scale. Without better storage technologies, relying on solar and wind alone to replace fossil fuels is outright unrealistic. This is where nuclear power stands out as a game changer. Nuclear energy is not weather dependent. It works 24/7, 365 days a year. Nuclear power plants produce zero carbon emissions and use far less land compared to wind or solar farms. In fact, one single nuclear fuel pellet the size of about a fingertip produces as much energy as an entire ton of coal. If we are serious about reducing greenhouse gas emissions and avoiding catastrophic climate consequences, we must prioritize nuclear energy as a large-scale, low-emission solution. Take France as a prime example. France delivers over 70% of its electricity from nuclear power, and as a result, its carbon emissions per capita are among the lowest in the entire world. The French government made strategic decision The French government made the strategic decision to invest heavily in nuclear energy decades ago, and the results are clear. They've been able to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and provide affordable, reliable electricity to their citizens while significantly reducing air pollution. In contrast, countries that rely only on fossil fuels, such as China and India, face sky-high emissions and air pollution that severely impact public health and the environment. If these countries had followed France's lead and embraced nuclear energy, they could have avoided a large portion of the environmental and health costs tied to fossil fuel use. We cannot afford to ignore nuclear energy any longer. If we want to secure a clean, reliable, and affordable energy future, we must act now. Another argument is that nuclear power is the most reliable and cost-effective energy source. You might wonder, though, if nuclear energy really is affordable. Isn't it expensive to build nuclear plants? Well, it's true that the initial capital cost for building a nuclear plant may be very high. The long-term savings are enormous. Nuclear power plants can operate for 40 to 80 years, and their operating costs are relatively low. In fact, Nuclear energy is cheaper than coal when you factor in the long-term operational efficiency and the social costs of fossil fuels, of pollution from fossil fuels. For comparison, wind and solar power can be cheap to install, but because they depend on intermittent weather conditions, the cost of building and maintaining backup energy systems like batteries and gas plants can drive up the price. Instead, nuclear power plants can produce baseload power without needing backups. Moreover, advancements in small modular reactors, SMRs, compact nuclear reactors, are rapidly changing the economics of nuclear energy. These smaller reactors are cheaper, safer, and quicker to build than traditional nuclear reactors. In fact, SMRs can provide affordable energy to millions of people, especially in developing regions that have not yet been able to build full-scale energy infrastructure. One of the greatest strengths of nuclear energy is its reliability. Unlike solar or wind, which can be unpredictable and often require backup power sources, nuclear power plants operate at over 90% efficiency. In fact, nuclear power plants are among one of the most reliable sources of energy, operating at a much higher capacity than coal, wind, or solar. To put this into perspective, coal plants operate only at 48% efficiency, wind turbines 35%, and solar panels at 25%. This means nuclear power plants provide consistent and predictable power, and that's something our global economy and energy grid desperately need. Another question you might be asking is nuclear power safe? And one of the main reasons people often shy away from nuclear energy is fear of accidents such as Chernobyl or Fukushima. But let's take a closer look at the actual safety of nuclear energy. First, let's remember that the safety in the nuclear industry has improved drastically over the years. After disasters such as Chernobyl, the nuclear industry globally has adopted strict safety protocols and guidelines and built advanced safety features into modern reactors. Some important context is that Chernobyl, 1986, was caused by a combination of flawed designs and human error. It was a Soviet-era reactor built with outdated technology and no real safety regulations. Modern nuclear plants are designed to be much, much safer, and the risks associated with a similar accident today are minuscule. Fukushima happened when a massive tsunami struck Japan and disabled the cooling systems of the reactors. The reactors did not experience a meltdown. However, one incident led to public concern. And yes, it's important to note that this was an extreme event, a once-in-a-lifetime tsunami, and modern reactors are designed to withstand earthquakes and flooding far better than the old reactors during the times of Fukushima. In fact, studies show that nuclear energy has caused fewer deaths per unit of energy produced than coal, oil, or natural gas. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, air pollution from fossil fuels kills around 7 million people annually, while nuclear accidents have caused far fewer casualties in comparison. In reality, nuclear energy is far safer than most people believe. With advances in reactor technology, smarter technology, and more robust safety protocols, modern nuclear reactors are some of the safest facilities in the world. What about nuclear waste? Another common concern is about nuclear power is the issue of nuclear waste. And it's true that nuclear reactors do produce radioactive waste, but here's some facts. Nuclear waste is manageable. It's very small in volume compared to the waste from fossil fuel plants. In fact, all the nuclear waste produced by the United States in the last 60 years could fit in the space of a single football field, 20 feet deep. Nuclear waste can be safely stored in geological repositories or deep underground. Countries like Finland have already built safe, long-term disposal sites for nuclear waste, such as the Onkalo repository, which will store nuclear waste for up to 100,000 years. This is a secure and sustainable solution. Moreover, nuclear waste can also be repossessed and recycled, significantly reducing the amount of waste that needs to be stored. When we compare the risks of nuclear waste to the dangers of fossil fuel pollution, it's clear that nuclear waste is far more contained and risks far outweigh the benefits. We are at a crossroads. Our energy future is in our hands, and we have a choice to make. We can continue to rely on dirty, polluting fossil fuels, or we can embrace the clean, safe, reliable energy of the future, nuclear power. The world is counting on us to act, and nuclear energy is the most powerful tool we have to combat climate change, reduce pollution, and ensure energy security for generations to come. I urge you to rethink your assumptions about nuclear energy. Don't let fear or outdated information stand in the way of progress. The future is bright, and nuclear energy can help us build it. Let's make the right choice. Thank you.